So I've got a great interview for you today. It's David Hickey from Crystal Journey, and this guy has been doing Crystal Journey, Crystal Bowl, and Gong concerts for over 20 years now. His story is fantastic. I cannot believe that I've sat down and talked to him about all of this for, we've got a good hour here for you. And it is amazing because I knew him 10 years ago. And now he's got a 9-year-old, I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and we've got kids and we're dads. And before we were very free guys, and we drifted apart because we had kids, and now we've reconnected. And it's amazing to get into this conversation about what it's like to be a dad, especially from our perspectives. And he is such a unique guy. I'm so happy. I appreciate the time that he has spent with me to have this interview. This is me and him sitting down after one of his concerts. So I just sat down and did like a meditative concert for the last 2 hours, and he just played, and we've still got the gongs up and everything, and we just chit chat about what it is to be dads in this crazy world and with the perspectives that we have. So we're gonna jump right in here. I hope that you really enjoy this, and subscribe. You're gonna get more interviews just like this, and even wilder ones, I'm sure, in the future, but this is a really good one to dig into, and learn more at thezendadmethod.com. And comment below. Thanks.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you? What just happened?
What just happened? What just happened?
A new portal, a new dimension, a new reality, letting go. I mean, all of it, everything.
Just a wild time.
Wild time.
Wild time. A great concert.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting me out here.
Of course,
to do
yeah.
this.
That's why, this is how we do it, right?
This is how we do it.
We met again for the first time in 10 years, maybe.
God, 10 years.
Last Friday.
Yeah.
And, you said, are you interested in doing a podcast? And I'm like,
yeah. Are you interested in coming to a concert?
you want to?
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Do you like to talk? Yeah.
I think you've got a really good message that you're sharing with a bunch of people.
Thank you.
So for me, I always want to know how dads are doing it, and you're a dad.
I'm a dad.
It's crazy that you're a dad, because when I knew you, you were like the freest man I ever met.
Living with my parents, and
you were like in a tribe, I'm like, I'm gone, I'm taking off, I'm going to this. And the stories that you had were, you followed around the Grateful Dead.
Yes.
You've been doing concerts, you've been doing gongs and Crystal Bowl concerts for 20 years now.
20 plus years.
And now I talk to you and you're like, yeah, I got a 9-year-old and I'm like, I'm married, and I'm like, wow, how are you living?
Are you sure that's me? No.
Exactly. But it's just the guy that I knew over a decade ago, and now I'm curious. I'm so curious how you're doing it.
How am I doing it?
Is that a big question?
We chatted on the phone last week, and we had a good conversation, and so it gave me a little bit of time to think about everything. And really, honestly, it's I owe everything to my wife, because she's looking after her. And I've been there in a different capacity, and it's a really nice balance. Even though my wife takes on most of the role of raising her, I'm there to provide for them. Mm-hmm. I'm there to protect them, which I take seriously, although my wife says she's not quite sure how I will handle an intruder if I'll just run out the back door, Hit
him with a gong.
Hit him with a gong or a gong mallet. Yeah. But, it's like life. It's still defining itself. I don't feel like a dad. I don't know if there's anybody that can say, yeah, I'm a dad. Like,
what is a dad?
Well, what does that mean, right? Like a woman, I delivered my daughter in the hospital. I got to, other than the doctor, I pulled her out of my wife, literally. Just come on, let's go. I wasn't expecting that, because we were supposed to have a home birth. We ended up in the hospital for other reasons. Everything was fine, but we're about to give birth. My wife's about to give birth. And there was a shift change, and the doctor that came in, I just, she looked at me and I looked at her. I'm like, do you think I could deliver her? And she's like, it's your baby. Just let me make sure that everything's cool, and then I'll call you in. And it all went down really quick, and she came out, and I was literally the first one to hold her, and I brought her to my wife. So, I feel like that's the beginning of the relationship, for sure. I mean, other than talking to her in the womb and playing music for my wife while she was pregnant, but like I feel like that's the bond I have with my daughter. Like I was the first one to hold her. Even before my wife, although she was inside my wife for 9 months. And I feel like that's kind of what it is. I'm there for you as much as I can be, as much as you allow me to be there for you. Because my daughter is she's a nice version of both my wife and I. We're all extremely independent, and that can be tricky to maneuver through in a marriage and with your kids, allowing them to be independent, but also looking out for them. And so I feel like I'm not completely on the outside, but I'm just observing everything and just kind of I'm like the backup quarterback. All right, like come on in, it's 4th down and we need someone to rush in for the touchdown. Sometimes that's the way that I feel. And then there are times when like all she wants is my wife. And I say this quite often, like, well, what about me? I'm saying it to both of them. What about me? And they're like, you'll be fine. That's what they say to me. And I'm kind of hurt a little bit, but I'm also witnessing something really beautiful in terms of like how my daughter just loves my wife so much and trusts her. Like, who am I to judge that or to feel like, what about me kind of thing? So I've learned to I'm not always successful in being okay with it, because I'm like, I want to be part of that. And sometimes they're like, well, it's just us. And they're not trying to push me out. It's just, that's the vibe they have, right? And they know, like, this is what I do. And I'm like that with this. And they're like that with each other.
You have a picture of Jerry Garcia with you at your concerts, So it's like, you're a very unique guy in that sense, that you have this special connection to the Grateful Dead and to music.
Yes.
And to it's almost, you have this relationship with sound in a way that is very intimate and very personal.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me that you've been able to do this for 20 years as a career.
Yeah.
And just not in defense of your wife, but when you're a stay-at-home parent, when you're the primary caregiver and you have that relationship, it makes it so much more intimate.
Yes.
It makes it so much of a bond. And I really want to get that across to all parents. It's really important to have a bond with your kids.
Yeah, for sure.
It's great to have that bond with your children. It's so important. I think a lot of parents are kind of missing that in their lives.
Of course.
And it's for kids.
It's sad.
Oh my God.
For sure.
It hurts my heart.
You're right. It's like there's nothing more important, right? Whatever corner we turned, however many years or decades ago, where just the emphasis on providing and caring for your child switched to like, so there's tangible reasons. Both parents are working now and they just kind of hand the kid off, or expenses have gotten so great that they both have to work. I mean, excuses or reality, I mean, they dance with each other, right? Fortunately, my wife and I have been able to maneuver through that. I'm able to provide for them by playing, and she can stay at home and focus all of her energy on our daughter. And it's great, and it's a symbiotic relationship, and being on the same page with how we want to raise her and the value system and all of that. I mean, I know a lot of people are struggling with that, and you start off with good intentions, right? Like I don't think anybody gets married and has kids and expects it to go south, right? It's like, why would you start with the intention of failing, right? So what happens, you lose a bit of yourself, and when you have kids, there's less time for the couple, and all kinds of crazy things happen. And one thing my wife and I have been able to, I think, truly succeed at is just always bring it back to our daughter. What's best for her? Okay, so if maybe my wife and I aren't seeing the bigger picture eye to eye, but the bigger picture is our daughter. So what's more important than that? So we try to bring it back to center to her. And for the most part, that's worked. And especially for me, like my wife and I, my daughter and my wife have a thing that they say to me. They have all kinds of acronyms and things for me, but they're like, it's not all about you, which is great, because I'm, like you were saying, before I got married, it was all about me. That's all I had. So what else is there? If you're by yourself and you're doing your thing and you do what you love, it is all about you.
Yeah.
You know, and the show provided the idea of people being able to come and be together. And I met my wife. My wife came to a show. So she met me in my element. And that's been another reason we've been able to succeed, is that she hasn't tried to take that away from me.
Oh, very important. Yeah.
Really important.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, for sure. And I thank heaven for that. She's never once get a real job, or you're not making enough, or yeah, you know. And I like
that seems like such a crazy thing to tell you. Get a real job.
Get a real job. Yeah.
David Hickey, come on. What are you doing? Get a real job.
Apple
Go.
Pick, UPS. Like I don't know what else is there to do. But I mean, and it's not. I get it. I mean, I have friends who are musicians. I have friends who are musicians in bands, and you get the wife or the girlfriend gets starstruck, and then they're together, and then they realize it's like, oh yeah, that is what they do. It's not just something they're doing on the side, or
this is
right?
what you do.
So this is like,
what is it exactly that you do? What do you do?
What do I do? I set up the instruments, I play, I tear down, I go to the next show, and everything else is just like a free-for-all.
It's just a channel.
It's just a channel, yeah. It's somebody said that to me a couple weeks ago. They're like, they went to see somebody else who did something similar, and they're like, it was good, but they felt like, she said she realized, she's like, David channels what he does. And I was like, that's kind of like, that's like a little new agey for me, or like, because I've always tried to shy away or stay away from the new agey stuff. And so more people who aren't into that type of environment will feel welcome coming to. I think that's what keeps a lot of people away from something like this. It's like, oh, it's too airy-fairy or too new agey, or
it is a gong and crystal bowl.
For sure, yeah.
Show,
yeah, 100%. So I took it as a compliment. I didn't take it as like oh, he's a channeler. I mean, 100% I do. I channel this. I don't go in with any preconceived notion. I don't rehearse or practice, which some of my musician friends are like, must be nice. You don't have to practice or rehearse. You just step in and play.
Yeah.
How many bands get to do that?
Yeah.
So,
not for 20 years.
For 20 years, no.
Yeah.
Seriously, in the hardest market to make it in, Canada.
Yeah.
Right? Like, 7,000 miles coast to coast with nowhere in between to play, right? Like you just got to drive to get there. I'm okay with that. I channel what I do. It comes in from somewhere else, you know? Like you mentioned Jerry. I mean, I'm reading more and more about the bands that I love, and at times, various times in their career, they talked about where the music, you know, it was channeled. It came from somewhere else. We can't take credit for it.
Now, what do you think the draw is for people? Like, people come here again and again and again.
Yeah.
It's not just like they come here for the experience once, they get it, and then that's it. I did it. It's not like, I mean, I've done that with some things like swimming with sharks or skydiving.
Yeah.
I did it. It's like checked off.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like that's what it is here. And I really paid attention today when I was laying there, and I had my hand on my heart, I had my hand on my stomach, and I was feeling my breathing, and I was just really into the sensations in my body. And I got to a point where everything just started to and it just vibrated.
Yeah.
Top to bottom, I was just vibrating. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like this, like I got it.
Yeah.
Like I hit that frequency,
Yeah.
you know, the gongs were going and everything, and my whole body was just vibrating at the same frequency, every cell.
Yeah.
And it's like this reset. And I think people might not even know it, but they're coming for that reset. If it's a spiritual one, if it's a physical one, if it's something, like, I don't know, you're gonna have a way more in-depth idea about what's going on, but for me today, it was just like, oh yeah, that's a great frequency right there. I love feeling that. And even, I was like, after the show, I'm like, am I gonna be able to have an interview? I'm pretty chilled out right now.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm pretty like
Good
chilled
vibes
out.
to be in. I mean, we're in the center of the vortex right here. Well, the reset, right? The authentic great reset, right? For sure. I mean, that's what's happening. I talked to people at the break and after the show, and there was a good number of new people. Like, more and more new people are coming. Mm-hmm. Last Friday, out of 50 people, I think 36 were new. Yeah. That's crazy. That's awesome. So, 70% new people coming to something like they've never heard before, maybe saw a gong or heard a bowl or something. Like, I didn't talk to everybody, but they actually, like I mentioned too at the show last week, you made a conscious choice to come to the show. You may have taken a shift off or asked for the night off, so it was really important that they be there. And I don't take that for granted. I don't expect or assume that anybody's going to show up. I'm still, after 20 years, like when people show up, I'm like, thank God, thank you. Because I don't want to play to an empty room. It's kind of embarrassing after 20 years. But the lady asked me today, she's like, what, can you explain a little bit more? This was at the break. And I'm like, what do you want to know? Like, she's like, what is it? I'm like trying to come up with something. I said, it's the coolest thing because it can be whatever you want it to be.
Need it to be.
Whatever you need it to be. If you want it to be musical, it's musical. So it's a concert. If you need it to work some stuff out mentally, spiritually, you can lie there and just let the music shut your mind off for a while so you can work some things out. So it can be that. You can go to sleep, pass out. And
some guy snored today.
Some guy was snoring. The Dalai Lama said you can sleep while meditating, but you don't get credit for it, right? So it's whatever anybody wants. I keep coming back to the Grateful Dead, but it's like, it was such a cool experience for me. It was so important, so vital to my growth as an individual, not just for the music, but I became aware of the environment. I mean, they had tables with Greenpeace there and other Rainforest Action Networks. So it was just a whole educational experience in becoming more aware of the outside world as opposed to just being in the city you're from and going, well, what, Hamilton, I mean, what's going on here? Nothing. You know, like there's a whole world out there, and they just opened it up. And I feel like that's what I'm doing with Crystal Journey on some level. Some people are traveling to the shows. They might come an hour or 2 hours away. So, I mean, we did that with the Dead, right? Like, only it was 5 hours or across the country. But it's still people are planning their weekend, or like, I can drive a couple hours to see a show. I mean, that's incredible. So, yeah, I believe people are looking for something different, even though I've been doing this for 20 years. I have been out there doing this for 20 years, and Jerry Garcia once said to an interviewer who asked him, like, how do you feel about your newfound success? This was after they had their first hit in 1987, and he said, we have been around for 30 years. It's not really new to us, but so I believe the more people awaken, they're going to look for something that is in alignment with whatever path their soul is searching for. And this is a really good either stopping post or beginning or just all encompassing, whatever. Because there are people who've been coming for 10, 15 years, not every night, but they're like, I need a reset, I'm going, you know, and I'm still here playing, so they know they can show up.
Yeah, it's another tool just to help people cope. Get through, figure something out. Everybody's a little different, I get that.
And a safe place to be in a world that is very unsafe right now. You know, where you can come and, again, that's what the Dead provided. You could be whatever, you could wear whatever you wanted. You wanted to wear all tie-dye hat, tie-dye shirt, tie-dye socks, tie-dye shoes, go for it. Nobody's going to say anything. In some cases, you don't want to wear anything. You know,
fine too.
That was fine too until the cops caught you. So that's the same here. You can be, and you can be whoever you need to be. You can be whoever you want to be. You can be your authentic self. You can be somebody who comes in who's scared of the world but feels safe in here.
So I'm going to take this right back to being a dad. Having that mentality as somebody who's promoting that out into the world, and then having a kid, and that's the ideas that they grow up with in their house. That's the things that is just like, it's just in their DNA, literally. I think having that for children, being yourself, being allowed to be whoever you want to be, is so valuable, but you just take it that extra step for everyone. And it almost feels like you're parenting the population. And maybe that's why you don't understand the definition of a father in your world, because you've just been doing it on a different level for so long. You've just been, I see when you talk to people. You're totally engaged with them. You want to have the conversation. You want to hear what's going on in their world. You want to help some way. And this is the way that you do it. You give them the time. You give them the space so that they can feel. Because how many people are distracted all the time? How many people are just like, oh my God, I just need an hour to just feel my body, to be in it. And I had that experience today. We're like, oh yeah, I'm feeling my whole body right now. Oh yeah, I've been so busy.
Today was a good day.
What a good day. Just to have that experience in a day is amazing. But to have that mentality for your kid, to raise your child in that is
Well,
That to me, I think, is very, very special.
It's thank you. I appreciate that. And believe me, I struggle. I'm sure there are people who will listen to this and go, like, that's not the Dave I know. Or life is about learning and growing and trying to evolve and trying to become a better person. For the most part. I mean, a lot of people are afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to do that. I want to become the best version of myself I can be. And I spoke that to the universe before I met my wife. And I really do believe if nothing else, my wife and daughter provide me with an opportunity to become the best possible version of myself. Now, by no means do I succeed at that, sometimes never. But I try to hold myself accountable, and I try to think about that when things aren't going well or my way or whatever with my daughter or my wife or all three of us. I think, okay, so are you just being selfish right now, or are you growing here? And we all fail all the time, and I guess failure is only an opportunity to learn and grow, right? So without failure, you don't know if you've gotten over something or you've become better at something, whatever. So I'm constantly challenged, and I challenge myself to rise above situations that are uncomfortable for me, especially with men and women don't see things the same way, right? I'm publicly declared that.
I haven't noticed.
Like the saying, right? Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? But there's a fine line between that too, where you don't compromise too much of yourself and give over to the fact where you just roll over because you don't want to disturb the peace.
Yeah.
Right? And nothing's really been accomplished because you don't want to cause any trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So that doesn't really work in a marriage. Over time, that's going to fail. And blow up in your face, But there has to be some common ground and some decent deliberation and communication and understanding, which again, I'm just saying these are the things that I'm aware of. I'm not always successful at. I really want to make this work. And I don't mean our marriage is failing. I just mean I want us to be able to communicate on a really deep level with each other where there's no conflict or we're not arguing. And at times I can definitely see where I would be considered to be combative, or I'm Sagittarius, I'm a fire sign.
Yeah.
All three of us are fire signs. My wife is a Sag too, and my daughter's Aries, so fire extinguishers everywhere in the house, but it's a lot of fire. There's a really interesting dynamic of independence, of the need to be heard, I was going to say the need to be right. None of us need to be right. We just need to be heard and understood.
Yeah.
Right?
Validation
of this is how I'm feeling. Our daughter's really good at that, and I'm proud of her for that. She'll say, I don't like that, or I like that, or that's uncomfortable, or whatever. She's 9 years old. I mean, I don't remember doing that at 9 years. I just remember
I don't remember being allowed to do that.
Yeah, seriously.
9 years old,
yeah, totally. Do I have to go out and play now?
Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying about what we owe it to our children to bring into the world. We chose to have them for the most part. So I can't say. I mean, I know some pregnancies, some children weren't planned. So.
Sometimes I think that children are choosing their parents.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a big belief that I have.
Yeah.
That, my kids chose to have this reality, to have me as their parent.
I believe that too.
I'm never going to be able to prove that theory. You know what I mean? There's no scientific study going on.
If you do, you won't be interviewing me.
Yeah, probably not. No. But to me, it just seems like there is some kind of meaning behind it all.
Yes.
You're my child for a reason.
Yeah.
I don't understand it all yet. I don't see it, but as I grow as a father and I look back on the decisions that I've made and the reason things happened, and sometimes I'm so hard on myself.
Yes.
Oh my God, dad guilt hits me sometimes so hard. I'm like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do right now. I'm such a bad fucking father.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not perfect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make mistakes, but how do I handle those mistakes?
Of course.
How do I move through them? How do I gracefully try to hold my composure as I'm raising these children?
Yeah.
It's so valuable to have the mentality. It's okay for me to fail sometimes.
Yeah. It's okay for them to see you fail.
Yeah.
It's what you do with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So do you lie there and cower, or you're like, okay, we got to figure this out?
Yeah. Well, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Let's fix it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that we say all the time. Something breaks, something spills. make a mess, clean it up.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, there's a mess. Now what? Right? Okay,
Yeah.
you don't have to freak out about it. There's no craziness. It's already done.
Yeah.
What's the solution?
And that's beautiful, and that's the way it should be. Or if you allow it to flow naturally, that's the way it will be, no matter what. And I'm like that with my daughter. I'm not afraid to tell her. I'm not afraid to tell her, hey, I'm sorry. You know, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I didn't mean that. My wife is big on, if you're not sorry, don't say you're sorry. And
Mean it.
you have to mean it, or it doesn't mean anything, and that's true.
I think your wife's good for you.
She is good for me. And so is my daughter. For years, if I've done something that I feel has offended her or upset her, when I calm down and I'm fairly rational, I'm like, hey, Olivia, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. And she knows. And she will say to me, it's okay. So that's cool. That's kind of the relationship.
So this is the thing, though. Like, that's valuable.
It is.
That's so
It is.
valuable. And
Yeah.
maybe you're not the primary caregiver. Maybe
Yeah.
you're not making all the meals and everything. But just allowing your kid to have that relationship with you is monumental.
Yeah.
You know, and because I've been in the parenting world and because I've seen so much of it. I mean, as a stay-at-home parent, I was in all the parent groups and
Yeah.
all the things, and I was at the parks, and I've got after-school programs. I was homeschooling. I've just done it all.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
And even before that, I was teaching overseas, and I was working at after-school programs, and I've worked with the Y. And I've seen all these different kinds of parents. And it's the parents that aren't even listening, that don't even care. And that's the real difference. Can you connect with your kid?
Yeah.
Are you aware of what's going on in the world and how they feel about things? That's huge.
Yeah.
It's not how much time we get with them, but what is the time that we're spending with our
Of course,
kids?
yeah.
And I think that you value that. It's an important thing for you to
I do.
have that with your kids.
Yeah.
So that, to me, because I mean, you were a little fuzzy on what's the definition of a dad. What is a dad? Like,
What's a
really,
dad?
what's a dad? Like, I made a kid. Does
Yeah.
that make me a dad? You know?
Yeah.
So a lot of the
I know I'm an
times-
important part of it, making it, but really,
Yeah.
like,
It's really easy to make a kid.
Of course it is.
But it's really hard to be a father.
Yeah.
It's really hard to be a parent.
Yeah.
Because it's all this responsibilities on you all
Yeah.
right now. And
Yeah.
there's no practice for it. It's just all of a sudden you have this child and you're allowed to walk out of a hospital with it and nobody's watching you.
Yeah.
And you're responsible for a life now.
Yeah.
It seems crazy. But
Yeah.
there we are.
There we
all
are.
of a sudden with kids.
It's pretty cool. I mean, really, honestly, I wouldn't change any of it. I wouldn't go back in time. The way the world is, would we have a kid today knowing what we know about the world? I mean, it's futile because we have our kids, but I could not imagine this world, my world, without my daughter in it.
I just wanted to jump in here real quick. I mean, we all love our kids. Our kids are just the most important things in all of our lives, right? Just like David said. And we all want to be the best parents that we can be. So I urge you, if you are a dad and you're looking to polish up a little bit, or you're out of control and you don't know what's going on in your life and it's just chaos, this is what we do. Check out ZenDadMethod.com and find out what we can do for you. I mean, there's coaching, there's courses, there's lots of stuff. You get the free book, help put your kid to bed, lots of things. You can get on a chat with me personally and we can figure out how to make your parenthood a complete success. So I'm going to let you jump right back into the interview. I want to take as little time as possible here and we'll get back to Dave and me chatting about all sorts of stuff. Thanks. Hopefully I'll chat with you soon.
As you know, I was really close to my parents, and when they passed away, I felt a little bit alone in the world. And when my daughter came in, she came in before they died, not long after, or not long before. And I really look at her as like, she's my blood.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit a different relationship that you have with your spouse because, you know, you're not blood.
Yeah, but it's a choice.
But with your kid, it's blood and like forever.
Yeah.
And as we were saying, and well beyond this world.
Yeah.
Right. So I think about that, and I think about my relationship with her, and I try not to project. I try not to think ahead. I'm one of those, oh, this is how things used to be, or this is how I'd like things to be, instead of being in the moment, right? Like, I'm trying not to do that anymore, but sometimes I have this fantasy, this vision of like when my daughter's older and we go to the movies together and we're just hanging out. Hopefully she still likes me, but it kind of happens right now, but it's more like she's older and we're just hanging out talking about maybe her boyfriend or life. Like I've had this relationship with her whole life where, you know, when she's 16, 17, 18, where she can be like, I can talk to my dad about anything.
Yeah.
Anything. Doesn't matter what it is. I have a buddy has that relationship with his daughter, and she's like 17, and he's like, she'll tell me everything. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I'm not saying that's going to happen 100%, but I want to be able to make that situation possible, where when she's older, she can come and tell me anything and not be afraid or embarrassed or anything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm your dad. Like, what do you need? Do you need me to do something? Do you need
help? You need
help?
advice?
Do you need to just? Yeah, I just need
It's
to.
going to be money. You know, it's
yeah,
gonna be money.
totally. Yeah.
Dad, I need some cash. That's what it's going to be.
Well, I got to go play a show then.
Yeah.
How many shows do I got to play to pay for this, right? But yeah, I think about that, and so I guess maybe in a way that's kind of where I'm at with her right now. I'm setting myself up for that moment where she does trust me in the future. So what I do now will affect that. So.
And that's the key, right?
Right.
I think that and I was talking about this earlier, when we have our children, those first 7 years really, it's really the first 4 years, they're so monumental to building connection with your kids, and it sets you up for the rest of your life. And just being around and being open and connecting with your kid at those ages is going to build those blocks, that foundation down the road. So because it's important to you now, and it's a priority to you now to have that. I mean, you don't have a 80-hour-a-week work week, you know? You don't. I mean, how many hours a week do you work? Like, it's crazy.
It's great, yeah.
You're around a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that foundation, even if you're not spending all the time in the world with your kid in their teen years or in their 20s, that foundation is really important.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where that connection comes from. It's such an important time to connect with your kids when they're young.
Yeah.
And for me, I remember when I first had my firstborn, I was like, oh my God, I need to go and like conquer the world. I need to go like make $1 million right now. I need to work as much as I can. I need to do absolutely everything I possibly can as a man.
Yeah.
And what I really needed to do was just hang out with my kid.
Yeah.
And after the first year, I figured that out. I'm like, oh my God, I just want to
be
connect
here
with
with
this
them.
kid. I just want to be with this kid.
Yeah.
And when my second came along, and I was like, I hope we're not changing the situation, because I was a stay-at-home dad, I thought the second kid, and she was going to want to be home, and I was like, no, I will still do this.
Yeah.
Day one, I had that kid, and I just realized this was the important work. This was the hard stuff. This was what really is going to matter when they're 22 and they're arrested for their first time, and they're like, who do I call?
Yeah.
It's going to be dad.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's who fixes everything all the way through their lives.
Yeah.
Dad had it under control. Dad had it under control. Dad was the one that was there for me.
Yeah.
And I just wanted that to resonate with them throughout their lives.
Yeah.
So that was really key for me.
Yeah.
And I think that you want the same thing.
100%.
And I think most dads do. They just don't. They get that idea.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I got to go and conquer the world.
Yeah.
I have a child. That's it.
Yeah.
You know, I need an empire right now.
Or they haven't dealt with their own issues.
Oh, well,
right?
yeah.
And I'm not saying I have. I'm shit. Forget it. But
they haven't all like vibrated out of you.
Yeah. Seriously. Yes. And if everybody just kind of took a step back and realized, like I was saying, how important it is, like you've been saying, there's nothing more important than our kids. There isn't.
It's the top priority.
It's a top priority. So take a step back, reprioritize things, and go, you know what, I can't do it all. I need some help, or I don't have it all figured out, but it's okay. I want to be here for you. But I think the way the world, and we talked about this off camera, how crazy and nuts the world is right now.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying it's an excuse. Nothing's an excuse when it comes to your kids. It shouldn't be anyways. Is that everybody's dealing with all of this like craziness on so many different levels, and for other people it's different things, right? Like for those who are aware, it's how things are unfolding. Yeah. For others, it's like, am I going to lose my job or whatever? I mean, it could be anything. Yeah. But you're just like, I can't focus in on my family right now because my outer world is falling apart. But if you bring it back into your inner world, that's all that matters. And if there was a strong foundation, like you were saying, nothing that is happening outside of the world would matter.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I'm saying that out loud to myself because sometimes I worry way too much about what's going on in the world, and I'm not focusing on what's going on at the house. Like my wife is always like, just be here now with us. My wife will look at me and go, stop thinking so much.
I get that a lot.
You know,
I get that a lot.
It was just yesterday. We're sitting in the kitchen and they're playing, they're having a good time, and I'm just sitting there and my wife's like, stop thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I know. Easier said than done, but it's not an excuse. I'm missing that moment by not enjoying it with them and freaking out about the world in my own head.
Yeah.
I'm not freaking out in front of them, but my wife knows me well enough to know that I'm not there with them the way I should be, but I want to be.
Yeah.
So what is it? What formula? What is it that prevents us? It's ourself. It's me saying, oh, I don't want to be here right now because I'm like worried about how I'm going to pay for everything. But like, it won't matter if you can't pay for anything if the whole world falls apart, but you don't have the foundation with your kids and your spouse. It won't matter anyways, right?
Yeah.
So just enjoy that moment. You won't get it back.
We're so pulled away from the present moment now. We're so distracted. Everybody's just constantly pulling for our attention. Not from your phone, it's from the billboard, or it's from the, I mean, everything. It's just constant noise around you all the time.
Yeah.
And I really think that's why people enjoy what you do so much.
Yeah.
Because like literally the whole world just gets shut down.
Yeah.
And you're just here.
Yeah.
You and whatever comes up for you. When it's a really nice, gentle way to just kind of let your soul deal with some shit for an hour or two.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's cool.
That's cool. Like where do you get that? Where do you get that? And people always say to me, like, how do you meditate all the time? And I'm like, well, I've been doing it for a long time now.
Yeah.
But you've got to take those moments just for your body to rest and reset. And for somebody that doesn't know how to do that and they just need that time and that space, what you do
It's really cool.
It's a great stepping stone.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great place to just kind of come back and be like, oh yeah.
And
it.
It's funny you should say that because we were talking again off camera, like looking at the demographic of the people that are coming. And it's always been predominantly women, which is interesting. And you would figure out after 20 years, some guys would realize there's lots of women that come to the shows, like, you know. But it's predominantly middle-aged to older women, which is great too, because I mean, like, how cool is that they're like seeking something different? Maybe they're done being a mother, maybe they're a grandmother now or not, or they're done work or whatever. But there's like. And they're thinking to themselves, there's got to be something more.
There's more.
I missed out on something, or I wasn't allowed to do it, or whatever. That's who I'm seeing coming to the shows. I mean, there are people in our 30 to 50 and even younger, but it's really cool to see that. And like you said, they may not be meditating or doing yoga or whatever, but they come here and in a way they are, right? Like, because they're doing what people who meditate do. They're doing what people who do yoga do. I mean, they're lying on the floor. They're in posture, whether they realize it or not. Mm-hmm. They're stop thinking, which is what meditation's all about. So they don't even really know they're doing it, right? Yeah. And it's so cool. And there's no judgment. There's no room for error, or because there's no error.
It's like the beginner course to enlightenment.
Yeah, totally. It's amazing, right? Like, it's so cool. And I get it too. Like I'm getting the hit. If I play multiple shows or however many times I play a year, I mean, I'm getting it over and over and over again. And to take a step out of it too, like I said to a couple of people today, how do you transform what we just experienced here today, like the magic, the bliss, the samadhi, whatever you want to call it, and take it out when I'm not performing? And that's where I'm kind of at in my space right now. Like, I want to feel this way all the time. Yeah. And it's been very difficult, which, you know, you can look at like huge acts like U2 or the Rolling Stones or Elton John. Or, I mean, how do you walk off stage and have just played a show in front of 60, 70, 100,000 people and go back to normal? Yeah. So, of course, they drank and did drugs and did everything they could to not have to go back to being normal. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how some of them survived doing it. And I don't.
Some didn't.
Some didn't survive, for sure, and some went early. That's been a real challenge for me, is to try and stay in this energy when I'm not playing. And sometimes that it wreaks a little bit of havoc when I go home and it's like, oh yeah, I'm a dad and a husband. My wife and daughter fully know, like is he happy to be home, or is it going to be a rough couple of days after the show, right? And that's not fair to them. It isn't, because my wife knows, like, you're awesome at the shows and everything's great, and you come home and you're grumpy because you're not playing. Yeah. And so I'm really seriously trying to just bring this out with me, to be like that all the time. Not necessarily at such a high vibration, but not get too low either after a show, right? Where it's just, I can just not be there. Right?
You have this big hit of dopamine, serotonin, and all these
100%.
great things. And then when you're out of it for a long time, especially COVID, that was hard for everybody. Oh my God. What do you find? How do you stimulate that same kind of thing?
Yeah.
We got to talk.
Yeah.
We got to talk.
Yeah.
Nick will throw you in a nice bath. Don't worry, I'm sure.
Yeah, totally.
I'm sure he's ready for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it's all about, you know. And that's what I want to bring to fatherhood is,
How
do you manage? What are the tools that you can use? Because dads need this toolbox of dad tools that nobody hands them when they have a kid.
Yeah.
And this, to me, has been a great tool. This is one of those things where I'm like, oh my God, I get to go to a David. When my friend was like, hey, there's a David Hickey concert. I'm like, I already bought tickets. Like, it just happened. I saw it, and I looked it up and I bought tickets, and I'm like, okay, are you coming with me? Like, that was the conversation, how it went, because I was like, oh my God, I gotta go back to a David Hickey show. Because I remember how much it helped me. Like, back 10 years ago when I was coming to your shows, it was chaos. My world was in absolute chaos. And Tim was one of my best friends. Tim was just chaos. Like, it was like, that was Tim's middle name, right? It was Tim Chaos. And you came to a show, and I remember one of the first times I went to your show, and I think we were right behind the gongs, but you hit a gong and it just went right down. And I could feel it just ripple through my body. And after I went up to you and you were like, how did you like the show? You know, it was just real chit chat. And I go, Dave, I think I figured out the universe. And you just laughed at me, and I'm like, no, seriously, man, it was like amazing. And you just laughed it off and everything, but it was so transformative for me. And it was those kinds of situations that I always found myself in, that I was like, oh, that was a memory for me. That was something that was really important. It was a pivotal shift in my world where it was something else that I could rely on, that I could reset with, that I knew was good for me. And how do I put more of that into my life? You know, you were just one of those good things that I could count on.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Great. Thank you for sharing that. It means the world to me. And really, that's, you know, when this started out, I mean, I had no preconceived notions. I had no blueprint. I had no, like, where is this going to go? How is this going to evolve? But the best thing to come out of it, other than that the music's awesome and I love playing, is that's what it does for people. And I never expected that. And I'm still, like, blown away at it. That's what this means to people, where they can feel that way. And how do you put a value on that? How do you explain that to somebody? There's so many different variables to this that don't fit into the normalcy of how to provide, right? So I think about that for my daughter, you know, dad, like, who does she see me as, right? Like, she goes, I do this, right? Like, what does it mean to her? She's like, this is normal to her.
This is normal to your daughter.
Yeah, this is normal. Like, Dad's got a show today. What time will you be home? I'll make sure you get me something on the way home, like a little gift or something. Like, that's kind of become our thing. She's like, make sure you get me something, right?
Yeah,
like,
bring me some cookies.
Whatever. Yeah, cookie, coloring book, whatever. And I try to, right? I could always try to. So this is what she knows. It's kind of cool because there's nothing to explain. She gets it. She's been born into this. She was brought up with this. I'm still doing it. Yeah. So that's, you know, I think about that too. Again, when she's older, it's like, yeah, my dad's a musician. Well, what's he play? Guitar, piano? No, he plays gongs and bowls. And, you know,
he plays crystal bowls.
She plays and
gongs.
And that too, you know, like, you know, she's growing up 9 years old. I mean, she has seen Tom Petty, The Who, The Grateful Dead, Bob Dylan, Fleetwood Mac. I mean, she's been to all of these concerts,
Yeah.
and that's what she grew up, you know. COVID took away a lot of that, so she doesn't have she was pretty young when we took her to all those shows. Elton John, John Fogerty, I mean, these are all shows. What 9-year-old and then 20-year-old or 30-year-old in 10, 11, 12 years is going to be able to say that they saw all of those bands, that their parents took them to that, whether it's a boy or a girl. I mean, she's listening
going into Paw Patrol?
Paw Patrol. She likes Paw Patrol, Spirit, you know, like, yeah, that's that. I'm in, you know, yeah, Marshall Rubble Chase, Rocky Zuma Sky. It's cool. At first I'm like, really, I'm doing that? And now, I mean, I look forward to watching it with her, and that means something to her.
Yeah.
And it's really cool, because before I think I would have been like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's silly, or that's not me.
Yeah.
But that's part of it, right?
You get to enjoy their enjoyment.
Get to enjoy their enjoyment. And see it through their eyes, and it's pretty cool, actually. Like, it's part of the whole thing. Yeah. It's all part of it. So come to Crystal Journey, like I say, nothing's separate. Paw Patrol isn't separate from Crystal Journey. Spirit isn't separate from Crystal Journey. Mm-hmm. My daughter's, whatever she's doing, isn't separate from this. Only if I make it separate. Only if I see it as something that is not part of it, which we talked about. Like, so that idea of community or oneness, it's only us that limits ourselves from that. And again, I'm not saying I've mastered it. I mean, I have things I'm working on. There's regrets. There's things I hold on to that I have a hard time letting go of, especially through COVID. You know, we talked about that. We won't talk about it in this.
Yeah.
But
everybody's heard COVID stories.
yes, you know, that's
Life
not
was
what this
crazy.
interview is about.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to work on letting go. Yeah. And forgiveness, that's hard. My brother once said, I don't know anybody who knows himself better than David. I know myself very well, so I know if I'm trying to fake forgiving or fake saying I'm sorry, and I'm trying not to even do that if I'm not, like my wife. If you're not sorry, don't say it. So I don't say I'm sorry unless I mean it. Mm-hmm. And I don't pretend to forgive if I haven't forgiven. Yeah. Right? So what's the point? But I'm trying to work on it. Yeah. Well, and the reverse, being forgiven, right? Like, I'm sure there's people that need to forgive me for something. I don't know. I've been around a long time.
I think learning those lessons for yourself and just going through those motions shows your kid how to do it also.
For sure.
It's really important that kids see us learning and growing, right? Like that's
for better, for worse.
That's what it really comes down to. If you just want a better kid, start working on yourself.
Yeah.
Be a better person.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Because when I was in my 30s, my 20s, it wasn't even thought of to have a kid. I couldn't bring a kid into my life because of the person that I was. It would have been a horrible situation for everyone. You know, like this poor
especially
kid,
the kids.
Poor kid. Oh my God, poor kid. Yeah. So it's nice that I got to the point where I was already working on myself so much, and I was like, okay, now I'm ready to have a kid. Yeah. Now I'm mature enough to be able to do that. And it doesn't happen that way for everybody.
No, of course not.
Sometimes it's just, you're thrown into it. You're in your early 20s and you have some kids and you're like, what do I do now? I don't even know about the world. Shit. You know, it's fortunate that for us, we got to travel around. We got to really be involved in the world. But at the same time, we had this world of freedom and the expansion of like civilizations all over the world, and just all these amazing adventures. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm going to sleep at 8:30 tonight because that kid's going to be up 3 times. I got some shit to do tomorrow. You know, like I got to get to sleep. I haven't slept in a week. And your whole world just shifts so fast. And you're just jumping from one foot to the next because your kid grows so fast.
That's right. So, especially today.
Kids are growing up way too fast. I mean, my 8-year-old talks like he's 16. And I'm like, dude, just stay 8 a little bit longer.
And some of it's forced upon them, and you know, the world around them is evolving quickly. And
I try to let them be the age that they are. It's really important to me that they have a childhood. Because we're just robbing kids of childhood so fast. So how do you just let them make mistakes and let them spill the milk and let them be goofy? Like, just let your kid be goofy for 15 minutes without yelling at them. Stop making that face. Stop making that noise. Like, my kids make the stupidest noises sometimes. And I'm like, okay,
enough.
It's been enough. You know, you've had your fun with it. It's been 15 minutes of you squawking. Just stop. You know, what, Dad, listen to it, squawk. I'm like, okay, I heard it.
Yeah.
But allowing them to express themselves,
Yeah.
I think is really, really important.
I appreciate you saying that to me, because sometimes I'm like looking at my daughter going, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
And I'm like, but I used to do that too. I mean, I was the black sheep of my family, making faces, making noises. Look at, I make noise still.
Yeah.
Your parents want to see you have a kid so they can see like,
You
oh
struggle.
yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, and so I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes I forget that, and I can be really just ridiculously overbearing, and like you said, just let them be.
Let them be.
Let them be.
Let them be. Let
Right?
them live their life.
They're obviously comfortable enough. Like, how cool is that? So when you put it that way, how cool is it that they're comfortable enough, whether they realize it or not? That's something I don't take for granted with my daughter. Like, when she talks to me or is hanging out with me or doing whatever, I'm like, this is a privilege, right? That she trusts me to be with her in that moment. So I think about that all the time, and sometimes I can go too far with it, where I'm like you said, like, but I was shitty just a couple minutes ago, but she still wants to hang out with me. Like, smarten up, Dave.
Because you're Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge honor. It's a huge role to
I know.
play in her life.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah.
And you said it too. Sometimes I know we can be hard on ourselves too. So we do something and we beat ourselves over the head continuously for something we did, instead of just like learning and growing from it and not doing it again. Because that's what perpetuates, keep doing the same thing over, right? You're just like beating yourself up over doing it, and you keep doing it. So you keep beating yourself up. So giving yourself a break, just realizing you don't have all the answers, like you said. There is no rule book. We never read any books. I mean, what's a book going to do?
I read a lot of books.
Yeah.
I read a lot
Did they
of
do any
parenting
good?
books. I did. I read so many parenting books.
Did they do any
like
good? Some of them? Little points here, there,
I
right?
think what happened for me is I got to evolve in a certain way with a lot of guidance, and I put everything to practice though. That's the thing. For me, I took action on it. Does this actually work? Or is this just bullshit that somebody wrote?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it was just bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, this doesn't work for my kid.
Yeah.
Like, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for my kid. This is just like, this is bullshit.
For sure.
And what I found really worked was taking action and trying the things out. The kid doesn't know if it's good or bad or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, let's just try it and see, does this work for us?
Yeah.
Let's try this and see if this works for us. Let's try this and see if this works for us. And a lot of people, for me, bedtime is a really huge thing. I wrote a book about it. It's called The Bedtime Routine. It was just like, I wanted to nail bedtime. And it was just happened every day, and it was a struggle. And I read these bedtime books, and I read all these different ways to do it. And it was like, no, you just gotta like let them go to sleep and let them cry themselves to sleep and all this stuff. And I'm like I can't, like that doesn't work for me.
Archaic, barbaric.
Yeah, there was a lot of really bad advice around it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna just take an hour and just really focus on it every night.
Yeah.
And the bonding and the connection that I got out of that hour with my kids, the things that they've told me so far.
Yeah.
Just read a couple books. It's great to teach your kids how to read, and then let's just chat.
Yeah.
Let's come up with a story. And I just open up the floor for them to ask questions, to tell me stuff.
My daughter says every night without fail, favorite part of the day at the end of the night.
Because there's no distractions.
No distractions.
Everything's shut off, and you just get to connect.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful time, and everybody's got to put their kid to bed.
Yeah.
And it was just the one thing that I thought, oh, if you get that right, if you get that connection point right every night with just, doesn't matter what parent it is, even if you guys take turns, whatever it is, but just get that right so they know that at the end of the day, if there's something they got to say, there's an opportunity for it. It's beautiful.
My wife does it with my daughter every night, every single night. And sometimes I'm part of it. Other times it's just them, and my daughter's like, you know, good night.
Good night, I gotta talk to mom.
Yeah. And now, again, like I was saying earlier, sometimes I have become good with that because she's letting me know what she needs. Mm-hmm. And I'm not taking offense to it. Before it'd be like, well, why can't I be part of it? You know? But she's actually so aware of herself that she's like, I don't need that right now.
Yeah.
I need mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Beautiful.
So then I go watch a movie or go try and book a show.
I got stuff to do. It's fine.
Yeah. You know, I might get 5 minutes in or 2 minutes or kiss goodnight. How many parents don't have that with their kids, whether or not they're aware of it, or they haven't given themselves time to do it, or they're too busy with whatever, and it's just like, go to bed. Like, I can't deal.
Just go to bed.
Go to bed. you know.
As they're on their phone.
Yeah, seriously. So yeah, a really amazing point, and yeah, that's awesome that you do that. Like, it's incredible, and I concur, because that's what we do.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
so important.
Connect with your kid.
Yeah.
I think that's the real important thing. It's just connect with your
Connection
kid.
with your kid.
Wanting to connect with your kids.
That's it too. Wanting.
Yeah,
you know,
actually wanting to be around
you know,
your kid.
yeah, and that's tricky too, right? Like, because you see parents who are just, you can tell they're like, oh my God, I gotta like talk to my kid, or, I mean, yeah, okay, so there's extenuating circumstances how they were brought up, right? So they don't have the tools, their parents never talked to them or didn't care about them, so.
But now that's your job, because you're an adult,
Well,
and
that's
you're a
it.
parent. That's
You're
your job
100%.
now. Fix that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, again, that's kind of what I was saying about me. Like, I'm learning to come into that role, to be a good dad, a good husband. And what does that constitute? What does that mean?
Yeah.
And it changes, right? It could just
For
be,
sure.
be there, supportive, you know, don't be an asshole.
Don't be an asshole.
Don't be,
Yeah,
that's
like
gonna be
number one.
That's number one. Don't be an
That's
asshole.
Don't be an
Right?
asshole,
Okay,
Dad.
like, that's really hard, but
Oh man,
I
I'm so
can't-
good at
I'm
being
so
an
good at
asshole.
being an
you know?
asshole. So it's like, okay, like, that, work on that. Don't be an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
I can only speak for myself. My wife doesn't ask for much. Just don't be an asshole, Dave. Like, just, you know, be a nice guy. And so I'm working on that, because I am a nice guy when I'm doing this. So like, so why shouldn't I be a nice guy?
I think if you like, this is your zone of genius, without a doubt. Like, when you're performing, and I think you're just looking for ways to always be in that zone of genius.
Yeah.
Relax.
Just
Seriously. Relax, man.
Go to Flying Squirrel.
Just chill out. You know, like, you're so hard on yourself, because you always want to be in that zone of genius. You're like, I love this so much, but there's also some contrast that you've got to. It's for me, it's recovery time. Like, for me, when I'm in my kitchen and I'm cooking for people, especially my kids, it's my zone of genius. I love it. I love making good, healthy food.
Yeah.
I love making food that I know is gonna make my kids feel good, and they really like to eat. When I nail that, I'm just like, I love that.
Yeah.
I've worked in a lot of kitchens. I don't want to be a chef, but I love that part of my life. And I also love talking, if you haven't noticed.
Oh,
yeah.
We're a good pair.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, like, I'm moving. I'm constantly doing stuff. I'll just go. And I got to the point where I was going 95% of the time, and I had nothing for recovery. I had nothing to stop and chill out and balance it. There was no balance. It was just nitrous oxide all the time. And I was gonna burn out. I burnt out for sure.
Yeah.
And I think when we always want to be in our zone of genius, it's not fair to us, because it's just not sustainable. It's not possible.
Yeah.
So just relax. Just relax. You're doing great. You're doing great. It's all happening for a reason.
It is.
It's all coming together.
It's pretty cool. And dialogue and talking about it too, right? Like, so you were saying about how you want to be able to offer these ideas and present to fathers, like, because there's really not a lot for dads. There's not a lot of heroes, or there's such a division between feminism and masculine, and there's
the gender role.
The
right
gender
now
role thing. It's upside down, inside out, all over the place. So nobody knows if they're coming or going. And in light of this conversation, what about the dads, right? So my wife will say the role of the dad. I don't think people realize how important it is, right?
Super important.
It's super important. It is absolutely different. After 10 years of observing of the three of us, it's a very different role than the mother, for sure. Of course it is, right? There's masculine, feminine, and there's energies that go with that, but it's very different. And it is vitally important for the man to be a man.
Yeah.
Right? For sure, whatever that means. And I know I'm not saying it's this or that, whether it's a father to a daughter or a son. I mean, I was super close to my dad, and I was super close to my mom, but very different relationships, right? And sometimes I wasn't sure, like, it was like, is my mom right or is my dad right? It wasn't about that. They were both really good parents, and that's all that mattered, right? Yeah. My mom mothered me, and my dad my mom mothered me in a really good way. And my dad tried to be the best dad he could be with what he had.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's all you can ask for. I don't look back and go, I wish my parents were different with me. They were great with me. And
You're lucky.
I'm lucky. I am
You're
lucky.
very lucky.
Yeah, I mean, there's other stories that go with that, but
Yeah.
but in terms of how I want to be with my daughter, the same thing. I want her to go beyond. He tried. Like
He tried.
He is a good dad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So and I'm lucky. My wife too. She's like, you are a good dad. Because I don't ask her, but sometimes when she thinks or when I say like, oh, I want to be part, she says, you are a good dad. And I'm like, she'll buy me. My wife has bought me some really unique Father's Day presents.
Yeah.
Like, just to acknowledge. Like,
Oh, it's nice.
It's
'Cause
nice.
Dads don't get it.
They don't.
They don't get a lot of validation for
They
what
don't.
they do as dads. And most of the time, like, when you think of dads, there's so many things where dads have to sacrifice. It's such a motto out there. You sacrifice for your kids. You sacrifice and sacrifice.
You
and
go to
I'm like,
war.
oh my God! Like, whoa, hold on here, hold on. Why are we all sacrificing everything? Like, can we get along for
Yeah.
a second?
Can we work together?
Can we work together on
Yeah.
this one?
Yeah.
And how, but men do, they sacrifice.
Yeah.
And there is this huge pendulum swinging on feminism and masculinity and non-binary, all of it. It's chaos out there right now
Yeah.
of what is a man, what is a woman, what is a father, what is it, like,
Yeah.
what are all these roles now? And we really have to define it for ourselves. What is a father?
That's it.
For me?
Yeah.
Who do I want to be as a father? Who do I want my kids to have as a father, as
Yeah.
a role model? And I think when we define it for ourselves, because you can't have somebody else define it for you. Everybody's situation
Yeah.
is different.
The state has played too big a role, has taken over too big of a role in what that definition is,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think when we define it for ourselves of what our kids need, and if your kid just needs you to step out of the room so that
That's it.
she can talk to her mom for a second,
Yeah.
because who knows? I mean, what girls talk about,
For sure.
it's not for dads
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yep, you need to have that conversation with your mom.
Yeah.
I'll be in the other room. And it's fine.
Yeah.
But if you're a dad that knows that, that's huge respect for your kid. That's an amazing
Yeah.
that you're not like, whoa, are you guys talking secrets? Because guys will get mad about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff
for sure.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Being secure enough to be like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, if you need me, I'm here for
here.
you.
Yeah.
And you step out. And sometimes that's fine.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
For sure. And
So,
that's it.
And that's it.
That's
and that's
it.
all it comes down to.
It's pretty simple.
Is it though? It's so hard sometimes.
It is hard.
Yeah.
Simple in theory, simple to talk about and say, yeah, that's the way it should be. And really, I guess that's for everything right now, right? Like politics, education, the economy. I mean, like
chaos.
It's chaos. Can we just bring it back to it being simple? Like why does there need to be such chaos?
Yeah.
And that's the big question, right? That's another conversation.
That's a whole nother, that's
a whole-
our next podcast.
That's our next podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
David Hickey.
Jason.
You are fantastic. Get over here.
I appreciate this.
This is awesome.
Thank
This
you.
is awesome. Thank you so much for the concert tonight. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, and all your insights.
Awesome.
You're an amazing person.
I look forward to more.
Cheers, brother.
Cool.
Awesome. How was that? Oh my God, my legs.